Well, spooky greetings, everybody. Welcome to Adobe Office Hours. My name is Andrew Boo and who's this guy over here?
I'm Nick, date Mike, Longo.
That's right. Welcome to the stream. If you are new here, this is Adobe Office Hours. Lots of fun names here. Some new people, nice. And Overturf, Stephen
Yo,
Overturf's here. Grace, friends from Adobe Career Bootcamp from
yay.
last week. That's
Good
super
to see
fun.
you. Thanks for coming
Yes.
back.
Nice to see you.
That's
So,
awesome.
if you are unfamiliar, Adobe Office Hours is a show where we give you advice, we talk about career development, and we really just hang out on this stream. We're gonna have fun today. It's the day before Halloween. It's Friday.
Gotta
I
have
know,
fun.
yeah, right? A lot of these streams are like buttoned up. Today, we're hanging out. We're gonna talk about some nightmare clients. We're gonna spill some tea, and it's gonna be so much fun.
Ooh,
Um, Nick,
not naming any names, but we are.
yeah, I mean, I'll name some names. I'm ready to burn some
Good.
bridges.
I wish I could. I had a few that I like to kind of just keep in the past and not mention, but you're right.
Yeah. Imagine someone coming here for the first time to this. If this is your first time, this is exactly what to expect every single week.
This is kind of us 5 minutes before we go on live.
This is
Nick,
it, yes.
do you have a costume? No.
That's true. I literally was texting Nick to get a costume. So today, Nick, what are we talking about? What is the topic of our presentation?
Perfect timing for today. It is nightmare clients.
That is right.
There's a lot of ways you can attack this. How do you prevent it? How do you have warning signs? What do you do to get out of it? What do you do to make sure it never happens again? We're going to cover it all. So
Yes.
can't wait.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's going to be
a new costume each week too. Let's
Oh
do that.
boy. Oh boy. My body's not ready for that. All right, I'm about to transition from being a ghost into just being a headless horseman because this
There
is
you
so
go.
hot. There we go. All right,
There
now I
you
am
go.
I'm a floating head. I am Madame Leota. That's my new that's my new costume. The green on the green screen. All right, so let's go ahead and hop in here. We do have a technical issue that happened literally 30 seconds before our presentation. So we're gonna see if it works for you. If it's bothering anybody, I'll go ahead and fix it, and Nix can tell you a little bit of a story.
Perfect.
So
I
let's
love
go
that
ahead.
Stephanie asked about the font. The font is available on Adobe Fonts. Get out of
Yes.
town.
Yes,
They have a
and
Halloween section
I was
on
gonna say,
font.
yes,
Come
even
on.
better. They keep doing these filters on Adobe Fonts, and they have a Halloween section now that I've used so many times to just grab like fun
I
Halloween
know.
fonts.
It was great. And
Yes.
that's exactly what this was. So thank you, Adobe.
Yes, thank you. Yes, let's go ahead and jump in. Today we're talking about nightmare clients. It's going to be so much fun. And yes, I should have known. I love the neon glow and the dark colors for the text. Yes,
Yeah.
we
came
love
through.
some good neons. Let's
know.
hop in and talk about the kind of sections that we're going to go over, Nick. Today we're breaking it down into, I believe, 3 sections, right?
Yes, we are. Warning signs, what to do to get out of it, and then also what did we learn? How do we eliminate this from happening ever again?
Yep. So we can everything that we're going to talk about today is hopefully applicable to you guys. You're gonna have this situation. That's the thing that we're
Yeah.
like, oh cool, we'll never have a nightmare. You're gonna have one. It's gonna happen 100%, regardless of what you think is going to happen. You will have a nightmare
Yes.
client. Nick, do you remember when your first nightmare client was?
Gosh, yeah, I've had a few that really turned out to be nightmare ones, but I had one that, looking back at our notes, kind of checks all the boxes here. But it was, and I should have known, right? But apparently, it was one of those ones where there was a very kind of lackluster interest in it. There was a lot of bragging on their side and how big the company was. Trying to think some of those other things that we had wrote as well, but it turned out to actually. I got paid, did some great work that's in my portfolio, never got made in real life, but it was a nightmare. Every time that phone rang and it was them, I did not want to answer it. Or
Yep.
when we did, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And I could not figure anything out to get out of it.
Yes, if you're
Anything.
currently in a project and you're wondering
Yeah.
if it's a nightmare client, we're going to give you a checklist of things,
Being
both
ghosted.
warning signs going into it, and then once you're into it, things to watch out for.
Yes.
So let's jump right in here, and let's see. This is just way crazy too hard to read. Let's do this, Nick. Can you tell
Yes, go for
everybody
it.
a little about how they can get involved and maybe where they can find like assignments and stuff?
Perfect. Yes. So is it on screen right now?
It is
There-
on screen, floating right
Perfect.
below us.
That is our link to our Discord channel. We heavily suggest you guys get on there, take a look and see what we're doing. We have our homework section there. We have an engagement section where everybody's kind of chatting and talking. For us, it's been a great way to kind of be able to chime in on there and see how your homework's doing, or just build a community as well. So definitely get in there. Also, when we do our notes, like what you're going to see tonight or today, or any kind of freebies that we're giving away, they're always there, ready to go.
Yep. And
yes.
also, if you want to get into our assignments and get the presentations and get involved with other things that are happening with Adobe Office Hours, you can go to the link that is floating below me right now. That is where all of our assignments live, some of our old presentations, and all the things that you need to catch up on our presentations. All right, we are back, and we now have black backgrounds on our slides, so we
Perfect.
can actually read them together. So, warning sign 1. We're talking about warning signs for nightmare clients.
Yes.
Warning sign number 1. What is it, Nick? Tell us a little bit.
And this is a perfect example of that story I was just telling about. Client cannot answer the question straightforward, even the basic ones. Like, that's just clue number 1, that they're not engaged, or this is like a burden to them in some way. Have you ever had that where like the client is actually like going like, the creative side is going to be a burden for me. I don't want to even do it.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And I've had clients that the conversation is like, oh, well, this isn't going to be my call, or like, oh, I'm not going to be the one like saying what this is. Yeah. I immediately jump over that. I'm like, I need to talk to the person who is going to be that person. Like, I appreciate if you're a recruiter, if you're a project manager, that's great. I need to talk to the person that's going to be making the decision so that I can see where their head's at, what's going on.
Yes.
And yeah, if they don't have answers, and not just like if you ask like, what's your budget and that kind of stuff, if you ask like, cool, what are you looking to do? And they're like, I don't know, I kind of want to do whatever. There is an opportunity to sell them and upsell them on something, but most of the time that just means they have no idea what they want, and it's going to end up being your responsibility to figure out what they want.
Yeah. And also it might even be just a person that it hasn't worked in this zone yet, and you can't get that information out of them. It has nothing to do with them not being interested in it. It's just they haven't been down this road, and maybe you're not making enough. I think a good disclaimer to say about all of this is it's never just their fault. We as designers have to take some credibility, or some for some of this, for things not happening or working out. So
that's true.
You got to be that open to this kind of thing. It's never just them, sometimes.
It's true. Warning sign number 2, the client doesn't like talking about money. This is something that like is always so, I always go in like super hard. You guys know me, like I'll just jump in and just say what I want to say. And so I'll pop in and be like, cool, this project's going to be 25 grand, and we're going to do half up front, and then we can get started on it. And like that conversation I try to have immediately, like as soon as possible, because otherwise you're spending time that you shouldn't be spending on it. Nick, how do you manage this when a client's like, I don't really think this is gonna be a thing we should talk about?
Now I do it totally different. Years ago, I would just pull, try to get it to just be a green light so we'd have the project. And now it's a big different story. If I can't get that to happen from them, I will tell them, well, look, we're just too busy right now. Can't even. To me, it is warning sign number 1 of like potential not good client, right?
Yep.
And you got to play it in there. And don't forget too, this works again for us. If you are a designer and you're afraid to talk about the money, it's going to be a nightmare issue as well, right?
Yep. You're just going to dance around it forever. I used to do this. I would like dance around talking about money until I hit a point where I was like, oh, I should have talked about money. Like, I'm already starting on this project. We haven't agreed on how much you're paying me yet, because I wanted to avoid it. And now that's like one of the first things I'll jump in at. And don't be afraid. Here's the thing. Somebody told me once, if the money's not there, neither are you. Good. Like if they don't have the money to afford you, then that's fine. Then you can move on to the next thing. And I know a lot of people are like looking for work and hungry for work. But just because you have something doesn't mean that that's the thing that you need to take. Right. Yeah. There have been projects that have come by that I'm like, cool, this is going to be 30 grand because it's a huge project, and they're like, oh, I was looking more toward like 4 or 5, and I'm just like, there's such a difference here that like I'm glad we talked about this at the beginning, because I'm going to email you a list of people that could probably like help you in some way for that budget, but this is the end of our conversation. That's kind of the way to get to it right away.
Yeah, and you know, they might just not be interested in it, but you might make that thing to make it happen. Talk about it more up front. Don't wait for this to creep up. Then you become that person that's done a lot of work and you haven't probably signed some papers
Yep.
because you were afraid to kind of confront them on this and talk about the money issues. It will
Yep.
happen again and again with that same client. Start fresh with them.
I
Eliminate this
love
immediately.
I love this comment by Mary. Not all money is good money. That is such a good quote.
Exactly.
Yes.
Takes a while
100%.
to learn that, but it's very, very true, Mary. Yep.
Yep. So moving into warning sign number 3 is the
Ooh.
client is rude or evasive during initial meetings. Nick, have you had this happen?
This my story, every one of these boxes, like I said, is checking off. This guy was kind of rude at some points, and we even met and had a meeting, and it was still very a little bit on that rude side. I was kind of wondering, gosh, I'm never going to hear back from these people. And then it ignited and it happened. And I was like, did I do so? That was weird. My signs were completely off. But
Yep.
I think also too, if you have anyone approach you that doesn't have the respect for what we do and what partnerships we will bring to them, as a designer, as a creative, by far, like, think about it as much as you can at that point, because wow,
Yep.
not good.
And Giratima has a great question that I actually have a story for. What do we do if
go
a
for it.
client is postponing the payment of remaining invoices after the project completion?
Oh, I know your answer.
Oh, yeah. So here's...
It never happens, does it?
Let me just... Okay, so here's the tea. I worked for a client, and yes, I'm a floating head. I should put my crystal ball back here so I can be... I'll do that
yeah.
when you're talking next. So I had a client that was a local agency in Riverside that is not named Black Roses. It's the other one, or one of the other ones. Let's keep it broad here. But anyway, I worked for them and they ended up refusing to pay me the end of a project. They threatened me. They were saying they were going to sue me. They would like corner me at like events and stuff. And it was just the absolute worst. And so if you'd like to read more about that and what you can do to avoid that, I actually have a post on my Behance. And my takeaway and lesson from that is let bridges burn that are already on fire. Just walk away. And so that was something that at a certain point I just gave up and I'm like, you know what? Keep your money. I don't care. I'm moving on.
Yes.
And that sucks, but like trying to get on them, and I mean, you can take them to court and stuff, and it definitely sucks, but definitely make people aware that they've done that and that they're treating designers like that, and just make sure that your designer friends don't work for them. So
yeah. Also, too, eliminate that from happening. Small freelance designers that are just dabbling in this, you can play this game of saying you will not get final delivery until the remainder of the balance is paid.
Yep.
So you can obviously you can not release those files until they have paid you completely upfront. You've eliminated that entire problem.
And if on a phone call they say, thanks so much, this project is wrapped, go ahead and send the files over with the invoice and we'll get it wrapped up. Don't send the files, just send the invoice.
Yeah.
That's the lesson I've learned.
Last time I checked, it's a lot easier to just send a check than to do about 20 different, AI files and exporting to 15 different formats.
Yep.
A lot easier to send a check.
I'm like, hey, here you go. Here is my invoice. Once that is in my bank account, then you will get the files. Other than that, you will not be getting these files. All right. Yikes. All right. Nick, do you want to cover this next point?
Oh, this is the best one. If you ever hear something anywhere close to this, run for the hills. The decisions will be made by the CEO or someone else, and you're told you will never meet or be able to speak to that person. So your contact person is just a middleman or a middle person, not a good spot to be in by any means, because you will never know. You're just throwing stuff on the wall now to see if it's going to fit and if it's going to hit with them. And one thing I always do, my solution to this is my contract says they get the advantage of picking one contact person to be the contact for me, but it has to their voice has to represent everything from the company, including anybody that's not part of the conversations. So that way, of course, we can always tack on those extra hours that we talked about when we were doing pricing. So if it does get beyond the scope of services, that hourly kicks in. And at that point, it's like, it might just be ka-ching, and let the CEO do whatever they want. But is that the kind of work you want to continue to work on all the time?
Yes, there have definitely been times that whoever pops in and they're like, oh, I want this and I want this and I want to try this. And my response is always like, great, that's going to be an additional fee. Here's what we've agreed on. I can totally do whatever you want, but it's going to move to an hourly fee. And the hourly tack on is $150 an hour because it's outside of the scope or whatever. Like, you want to tack that on because it is a surprise. And just make sure that you are meeting with those people, because otherwise you're wasting time, right? If it's being passed up a chain and like everyone's giving feedback on it, that like you're over. So when I just started a big branding project, one of the first things I did is, who is on the core team? I need to be talking to one person who's making the decisions, and you need to be over that core team. And I usually have an odd number. So I got 5 people on a core team to help make the decision. And then one person was communicating back and forth with me and was kind of the tiebreaker on there. So making sure that you have it set up, because if it is just like, do the project and someone will be giving you feedback, no. You need direct contact.
Yeah. Then you're just a pixel pusher at that point, guys. Like, right? You got to control and navigate the whole conversation. If someone's out of the picture and they're the ones making the decisions, do the math. It's not adding up.
So this is such great advice. I'm a painter, and I always have clients who want me to send the art first and pay later, but I've learned to include payment first in my art contract. Yes, totally. Especially with that.
Gosh, because like, I'm curious. So in that situation, you're not dealing with revisions, because no one's going to return a painting and say, change this or whatever. So I would almost think your whole payment should be up front at that point. If you're commissioned, right? Great. Yeah, I love seeing from other disciplines what kind of pricing kind of situations are happening there.
Absolutely. And y'all, if you're just tuning in for Office Hours, this is a show that very much can go off the rails, and we will chase any rabbit trail that you put in chat. So if you have questions, 100% put them in chat. We have like probably 40 slides today, so we may not get through it all, but we'll post it afterward. We'd much rather answer your questions that you have. So Justin has a question for me.
Go for it.
And Justin says, how do you deal with confirmation in the situation if you are working for an agency and you can't drop the client because they make up your bread and butter of paying bills and everyone's salaries for the company? How do you mend that relationship to get them to actually want to work better with you?
Oh, wow.
I think if it is your bread and butter, like, try to find something else, and then like that big bridge burn. Like, stand there and like be looking of where you're going to jump to. Always have your parachute ready, and then when you're ready you can jump off, and otherwise like you kind of just have to eat it if they have you. With that, definitely try to diversify as much as you can, and sometimes like it's worth it to just cut it if it's super unhealthy for you. It's going to be hard and you're going to have to find work pretty fast, but it might be healthier to be scrambling for work than to be totally miserable.
I would add it, in some cases, I've advised some people after telling me a story similar to that, is to give it that one last try and have a sit down conversation with that group, describe everything that's kind of went off the rails, how we can get it back. And if they are in agreement to do it, you might just be surprised at what you can actually fix, you know? I totally get with you too. Like, dude, like, it's not worth it. I think we can all agree it's not worth it to continue the way it is. So if you feel that there's no way, like, I have a few designer friends that are working in internal places, and they tell me about the way it's being run. And I'm like, how do they even make a dollar, this company? And yet there's no way he can change the process within that place. So that's when you say, guess what? It's time to leave, bless you.
Yes.
It's a tough one. I get that, Justin, but like, my God, try at least. Give it that one shot. You'll feel better when you do bail that you gave it that shot.
Yep. So warning sign number 5, having to be a part of a family or a team player. These are like major red flag words for me. Anytime that there's something like, oh, we're so excited to like have you a part of the family, and like we're going to like build it together, and we all work together to like build this company up. Here's the thing. It's a job. It's not your family. I know that we want to have camaraderie and good morale and stuff, but if that's being leveraged to make you do things because it's like, oh, everyone does this, so like you have to put in the extra hours on the weekend because like we're all just like working towards something together. it's a job. Putting in those extra hours, you need to charge for them. They're your hours. This isn't like you're going and helping your mom like install her cable. You're like doing work and giving it to someone who's going to make money or advance off of it. You should be getting your cut of that. So don't buy into this. And especially Nick, I know you talk about like the like late nights of like, but we're buying everyone pizza, right?
Yeah. Oh, I did that as a creative director when you have to keep a team happy, of course. And there was more than just pizza. Jeez,
Yep.
you know, you're doing everything. I like to think of it this way too, where those nights do randomly happen in the real world. Great.
Oh yeah.
But as a client and vendor relation or whoever we are, what I look at this headline is I strive to get to this point. They can't lure you in with this, like you
Yes.
said. Like if it's the beginning stages and they're like, we're looking for someone to be a part of the team and blah, 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 that's telling you they're going to cut something else out because they're trying to dangle a carrot in front of you.
Yep,
What
I
I like
agree.
to say is use this as something to strive for with a new client and go, I'm going to gain so much respect. They're going to love working with me that I will be a part of that family and that team player after,
Yep.
if that makes sense.
That's very true.
Right?
Yep. But I think, yeah, the perspective there is like, once you get to that point, then it's your choice and it's not being like held over you. You're like, yeah, I'll totally work on Friday night because this is something that I'm like, I want to get done for you.
Yeah.
Because I have pride in it and I feel like I want to do this. Not like, oh man, we have to work on Friday night because that's just what we do here.
Yeah.
So it is that difference of making the choice versus having it kind of forced upon you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so this one happens so much to me. The client starts to be Steve Jobs, right? And what I
Yes.
mean here is like at the very end, it just goes, okay, so like one more thing, right?
Yes.
And it continues on and on and on. And if you say yes once, then you have to say yes twice, and then you're saying yes 20 times, and then you have all this extra stuff that is more time and outside the scope of the project and just continues to keep going.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It's so bad.
I've got one with this and it's still ongoing. I hate to say it.
Yes.
I think in the back of my mind, I think I even called him Steve Jobs one time because I was like, at least Steve was giving you something you wanted. Jesus, right? Like it was some new product. But I think this is that one where I'd rather a client communicate and come clean with the laundry list up front so we know what we're talking about and there's
Yes.
no surprises.
Yep.
Because the one more thing, again, feels like they're trying to squeeze something in for the same amount of price or the same value. And
Yep.
you don't do that to your mechanic. And what? Hey, one more thing. You've just spent $300 on your transmission, but you say, "But my brakes are squeaking." Can you? No one does that.
Yep.
No other profession does that.
Yep.
So think of this as something like, "Whoa, what a warning sign! Get away."
And I love that, like, and this happens on every show. We're giving you guys advice on things, and then we're like,
Yeah.
I'm doing this right now.
Yeah.
I definitely, and I think that I have the opposite with one of my clients that I like bought in at the beginning. Was like, I love you guys. I want to do as much as I can to help you or whatever. And it's flipped to where I'm like, all right, what other thing do we need? What other thing do we need? And it was like the dream client. He's like, cool, our next meeting, let's talk about like when is the cutoff day that we just like don't come to you anymore. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever.
Wow.
Like, you're not asking for more stuff. You're like, we're good. Like, we want to set a date, we cut off, and then we just figure it out on our own. And I was like, yes, that's what we want here.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a tough one, man. Because it happens a lot. It's even in revision stages where you think you're done and you're summing up a phone call, and they're like, "Oh, one more thing," and you're like, "Yeah."
Yes. Yep. And a good question from Guzen.
Yes.
Would you charge them extra for extra jobs? Yup.
Of course.
Whatever is in your contract is what they are paying you for. Outside of that, you need to have in your contract, like, work outside of this scope will be, charged at 1.5 times hourly rate or something.
Or we'd be happy to put together an estimate for that as a separate project.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. Quote them out completely separately.
what's the better way? It might work. It might piggyback off of what you're doing. So then it can become an hourly thing, but if that's the one thing I can tell people to stand up for more about running your own business or doing any kind of freelance work, even, it's like, even with a job, if it's hourly, that's stand up on that.
Yep.
It's true. It's really something. Don't let them get more for less.
Yep. So next up is hostage situations. I got stuck in one of these. I made the mistake and it was bad. So it was, we will do X when you do Y.
Tell
right?
us about it.
So this is that same story, right? That this project was open for 9 months, and they kept saying we're waiting on client feedback. It's not wrapping. They just kind of weren't wrapping it up, and then it turned into, hey, when you send the files, we will pay the invoice. Hey, when you send over the next proof, then we'll think about contacting the client. When you do this, then we'll do this. That sometimes that's in the workflow, but sometimes it turns into a hostage situation. That, hey, this project won't progress until you do this thing that you don't necessarily need to or want to do, because we won't forward it unless you're doing that. So
Yeah.
being held hostage is the worst. And if you get in that situation, just, hey, this is not the way that I work. Here's how I'd like the flow to go.
Yeah.
You're kind of guiding them, and if it flips and you start to be the hostage, like, just bail.
Ooh, good question. How would you cover this now after it happening in maybe your contract? What would you change and say differently?
Oh, I would have not sent files until I got paid.
Yeah.
And even at that, I would have like cashed it out I would have put something in a contract that had a kill date. Because they
Yes.
didn't have a kill
Yes,
date,
that's
and
it.
they didn't want to close it. And so it was open for probably 6 months without any feedback or movement. And I was waiting on the other half of my pay. So I did get half up front, which was great. And then
Yeah.
I was waiting on the other half of my pay. And so they just ended up not paying it. And I would have put something, hey, at 3 months, this project has to get paid out in full, and I'm done. Wherever we are at 3 months, I'm done. And if there's more to continue past that, then we continue and figure out what the
Yeah.
extra time looks like. But this is
Yeah.
a contract for this project, including a time period of 3 months.
Yeah.
And that gets them. So it's like, we need client feedback. And because I'm working for another agency, it's like, hey, now it's on you to get the client feedback, to get things moving along, because you're just hiring me out. That's your responsibility. You need to hold up your end of the bargain so that I can do my job.
Sure. I think there's a great way too to add something about if something comes up that stalls, and it could be anything that stalls the ending of this thing. Yes, like you said it earlier, you can kill this project, it could end. And then to get to restart it, you add a restarting fee. And
Yes.
when I added that into my contract, it has eliminated about 90% of this happening. I got those ones where it was everybody's hot and heavy and they're going, we're chugging along. Then all of a sudden, just complete silence. It wasn't like they ghosted, but it was like, oh, we had to put it on hold. We're waiting. And now you're like, I have a certain amount still due to me. There are ways to figure that out. And that's why your contract is number one, the first thing you do after any of these situations.
Yep, and we're
Perfect.
going in the flow now. This is what happens. So we
Let's
get
do
20
it.
minutes in, and then you guys start dropping great questions. So
I
we're
see
going
paragraphs over here. I'm
in more
more.
questions. I pulled an
Go for
all-nighter
it.
for a complex project for a client. After that, I expected quick turnarounds on every project. Is there a good way to reset expectations?
Ooh.
That's a good question.
Yeah, maybe before you even accepted doing it that fast, you say this isn't normal turnaround.
Yep.
And I think that's a great way to say it. So you're like, I don't want you to get used to this. I can do this to prove my worth and to prove that I'm a great provider in this sense of creativity, but this is not the norm.
Yep.
And,
yeah,
and that way, right, like you've set the tone right from the very beginning.
Yep, and then communicating the initial point. And I actually do something else on my projects a lot is I will put things on the invoice and then take them off. So I'll basically like put rush fee, 75% increase. Here's how much that would be, and then manual audit, take that off. So that I'll say, hey, I need, and then I'll have a little disclaimer that says like these rates are not typical, like they're not valid for another quote on any other project, and just showing, hey, this is something that is there, that does exist, and I'm taking it off for you this time, but know that next project, I'm probably not going to take that off. And it's not a surprise to them. It's like, oh, we got a deal on this one, instead of, them having a surprise in the future.
Yeah, and I get it. You want to prove your worth, especially if it was the first time and they're asking for it. But just be crystal clear on that. You will get them set to think that that's the normal pace that you will work in, and no one can do that.
Yep. And I 100% bad deals are the learning experiences. Yes, Mary. I think that we would not have any of this advice for you if we hadn't been like completely raked through the coals.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Like that we are not giving this and like, this is how to avoid every nightmare client. This is like, okay, cool. So when you're laying on the ground crying because somebody kicked you in the face, this is what you should do next.
Exactly. Yeah. I hate to say it. That's like the best lesson every time is to have to go through there and get that burn. But
Yep.
hopefully these little things will eliminate that somehow if you can do it from the start.
Yep. And the last warning sign is you and us talk instead of we talk.
Hmm.
If you are having conversations and they're saying you, and then us, it
Yeah.
just is already putting this kind of divider between you that it's going to be end up being me versus you. And I don't want it to be that. I want it to be
Yeah.
us. We together are going to be doing this. And I think there are times where the conversation is you need to take this project and we're hiring you and you're just going to do it. That's great. But
Yeah.
then I try to push into we're going to work on this together. I'm so excited to partner with you. And if the
Yes.
conversation goes back into like they're not interested in that, usually I'm not interested either because I want it to be
Good.
a two-way street.
Yeah.
For like production work and stuff, I'm like, you don't have to talk to me. We don't have to be friends. Literally just send me an email and I'll do it. But for
We'll be
like branding
fine.
and stuff that I need
Yeah.
to like have a relationship, you have to use that language and see how they respond.
Yeah. I even use it. I'm very kind of like proactive in putting in those first few, maybe the first or 2 second reply back from the estimate to some other stuff. When they have questions, I always kind of say like, we will look and review. We will provide and narrow down. Like,
Yep.
and think that helps. I didn't even realize that what a help that is to get that conversation going the right way. And it's never us versus them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even thinking through as you're sending those emails, that's a time that like people don't think that they're just like, oh, it's just an email. And instead of saying like, oh man, I'm so excited to work on this project for you. And change that
Yeah.
to say, hey, I'm so excited to partner with you on this new initiative, right? That to them is one, we're
Yeah.
partnering together and you're excited about that. And instead of just being a project, it's an initiative, right? There's something starting that has momentum that's going somewhere. Using
Hmm.
those words is completely different and
Oh yeah.
completely powerful if you want to use that with clients.
Yeah, I love what Justin just wrote about trying to start a job, ask for half up front, and they were very sketchy about it. What does that tell you immediately?
Yep.
They don't have the money.
Yep. Either
It's
they
like,
don't have the money or they don't trust you as a designer. And if they don't
oh,
trust you as a designer, that means they're going to have a million rounds of revisions and like they're going to want to get their money's worth. And it's going
yes.
to end up being an expectation worth more than what they've paid. That's
Yeah.
going to be trouble.
One of the best one I had was the project was finished. We finalized. I probably went through about 150 different renditions of what this logo finally turned out to be, and it was all said and done. And I had a deposit. Went for the remainder. Gave them the turnover package of everything. They're like, 2 weeks later, nothing. And he's like, oh, we haven't got our funding yet. I was like, I don't know exactly what that even means. Like, you signed a contract, whatever. I immediately pulled everything off of Dropbox because he hadn't even touched it yet. That was great. So I
Yep.
knew he didn't have it. But still, you're like, that's your reason, but not your reason to not pay me.
Yep.
Like, it was those are those breaks, man. It hurts.
It's
It
rough.
really does. Yeah.
So once you have one, what do you do?
Mhm.
How do you manage a nightmare client? Here are our suggestions to managing a nightmare client. If you've gotten in there and you're like, I missed the red flags, we're here and it's happening. Here we go. This is what you do. Nick, first point, what is it?
Yes, we want to make sure we're going back and that contract is watertight. You want to make sure there is no way it can happen again, and write down those pain points. What happened where? Don't forget to put blame on you, because right now the fact that you're going back to your contract and making it better means it wasn't there in the first place. So
Yep.
let's make it work great. Think of that, and then ask other designers. You can always reach out to folks like me and Andrew and figure out, like, ask what else can I do? What can I add? I'll
Yep.
share my contract with anybody. It's 22
Absolutely.
pages, but I will share it with anybody.
Yep. Did
So-
you just forget my name?
No, why? Didn't I?
He like paused and I was like,
I was gonna grab a glass of water.
nice. Okay, so I was like, that would be hilarious. Like, and this
And
guy.
Andy.
There's a great question. What do you think? What do you do when they think the project is not done and you think it's done? You go back to this contract. That contract has to be so airtight that you can go back and say, hey, here are the things that we agreed on. These are the things that I have completed. If we want more, then we're going to need to move past that. And I'm going to talk about that in a second at one of my points as well. Nick, what's our next point here?
All right, go back to the brief. If you have, like, just like that last question, if they don't feel that it was actually everything that they were hoping for as a deliverable, is your brief that detailed? Does it have all of that stuff in there? So there's no question what you give them matches what they were expecting. Where it goes wrong is you didn't lay out or list out everything and how it was going to be created. Like a lot of times, I think someone asked a question earlier about the native file as opposed to the final file. And that's another example. Someone might be like, oh, I thought I was going to get all the native AI files, whatever. And you're like, why did that happen? I didn't specify that in my brief or my contract or anywhere else at the very beginning.
Yep. And somebody said something that I thought was great. Oh, here we go. What's the best way to show the client current progress on a project or finals without worrying that they'll take the files and run without paying? I do video calls and I record video pitches so they can see the stuff, they can pause it, but they don't have any of the files.
Yes.
Because even screenshots can get sketchy.
You could do watermarks on Acrobat as well.
Yep.
That's always a good thing. Also, when you are saving it as the PDF, do not make it as the Illustrator native. Like you want to, they can't, all they're going to get is technically like a raster version of that, not the vector. Yep. People get savvy and they might have a version of AI somewhere in their office. And if they can open it up and start using it, you didn't lock it down. Yep. So don't give them anything that they
absolutely need. Colby's here. Hi, Colby.
What's up, Colby?
Also, y'all, I need you to like give us all of your power because there's no way we're making it through this deck. But we're gonna keep going. We love your questions, so keep the questions coming. But just know we may have to like push you to this deck afterwards. So how to manage the next thing that we want to talk about is discussing changes live to avoid conflicting feedback. This is like, don't start an email chain with 90 people. We're going to get on a call and we're going to talk right here as we look at it.
Yes. You know, I think the biggest fear there is you think it's going to be too time consuming. I can argue this is streamlining it because an email chain going back and forth, anytime I get a list of revisions back from a client, one, I do want it in writing. They have to have it in writing. So I know that sounds like it goes against this, but I do that so they are responsible for that list of changes, but then we'll go live and talk about it. So my first reply is, when can we talk about this? And it's here's a good question. Do you ever go live and share screens with the AI file or the working file and work with them?
I literally stream as I work on things and I tell them they can just pop into the stream whenever they want.
Oh, wow. Oh my God. Never in a million years would I do that.
I had to work my way up to it. But it is very intense, but it's usually chill. Like they'll pop in and they'll be like, oh, that's really cool. What if you try this color? I'm like, yeah. Or I'll try it and be like, oh, this isn't working because X, Y, or Z. And it makes it so that like in real time, we can go through and change things. Or if we're on a video call, I'll literally have like Illustrator open and they'll be like, oh, if I'm doing room designs, I just did some room designs for some physical spaces. And they're like, oh, what if that wall was like purple with like some stars on it? And I'm like, oh yeah. Let me see if I can do that real quick. And I'll just flip it over to purple. I'll put some stars. And that way it just becomes something that we're collaborating together. And if it's not something that like we're rethinking and having to have like investigation process and intense like design stuff, 100%, I will just sit there with them and be like, yeah, give me like 3 minutes and I'm going to pop things over real quick and just do as fast as I can and be like, yeah, is this the idea? I'll button it up later. Give me time to button it up later, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Mary asked why I wouldn't do that. And I just feel that what I have set up as far as my reputation, how I work and do whatever, I feel like I would be I hate to say like almost like a puppet. And they should trust me in the way that I'm doing things that we are going to deliver. Have I ever done it before? Yes, of course. I've had many times where I might have shown them a screenshot while we were on a call and said, what do you think of this? And if that could help us save 5 minutes in that conversation, I'll do a quick thing and show it to them as a visual. But I never want them to see, it's like Wizard of Oz. I don't want them to see behind the curtain. I just don't.
Yep.
It's then I hate to say it too, but then they kind of, I don't know, just like, not that we do anything that's magical, but like, I just want them to see it and go like, wow, yes, you nailed it. That's where we're at.
Yep.
That's the difference, I guess. Yeah. It's to each his own.
So continuing on, stay calm, even if your client does not. Yep.
This is a very tough one for me because I can get very heated very quick.
Yep.
I don't know about you.
I don't get heated. I turn into like the most like passive aggressive, like I have like the I want to see your manager haircut that I just like throw on. And I'm
Yes.
like, oh, I'm so sorry that you feel that way. Unfortunately, you're still gonna have to pay me, and I'm gonna need that payment like right now.
Yeah.
I try to stay calm, but I very quickly would become super passive aggressive and just be like, yeah, if you guys have wronged me, like it's just over.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I've learned to walk away, wait, particularly if you have that time to sleep on it and reply back. That calms me down a little bit too. But
Yep.
again, I will be the first to say, I look at that complaint or whatever it is. If they got a little angry or they're a little upset, my first question is, did I do something wrong? So if it is, I can't come back hot and heavy, right? You gotta come back. You gotta almost come back even softer. But walking away.
If you make a mistake, it's over. Like you just have to own it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yes.
And
exactly.
I think too, having a kill fee in your contract is always great, because then you can kind of, if you get to this point, just say, hey, this isn't working out for me. I don't think I'm gonna be the right person for this. Here are some recommendations of people that could pick up this project. I'm just going to go ahead and charge you for the time that we have so far, and I'm just going to walk away. And usually that conversation goes well, or at least they're open to paying you for the work you've done, and then just walk away. Because at that point, it's usually not a surprise, right? It's that like awkward conversation where like you text somebody and you're like, hey, we need to talk. And they're like, are you breaking up? And we're like, yeah. Like once you start to talk and you both know that it's coming, and you're just like, all right, here's the deal. I get it. Neither of us are excited about what's happening right now. Let's part ways. You'll be happy. I'll be happy. Everyone's happy. Let's just do it.
Yes. Mallory had asked that, like, she asked if I do not want to show the client my process. No, they're getting a capture of my process in how I run things. I don't want them to, it's like a doctor opening up their operating room to someone and I don't think a doctor wants anyone telling them like, are you sure that's the right valve? Like just, that's the whole point.
Yep.
They'll be more than happy when they see the work, but I just don't think it's like, to me, it becomes change for change's sake at a certain point like that.
All right, let's burn through a couple of these and then see if we can get into the last section. So here's one that's pretty self-explanatory. If you're spending more time managing the situation than you are doing the work, just like bail.
Say no more.
Yep.
Say no more.
You're out. Yep. Hire a project manager. And if you are being your own project manager and that's your job and you're not the designer, they're not paying you.
Yeah.
So next is use your ammo. And what I do is, this is starting at those beginning conversations, right? What's in the contract? What's the scope? And what are the goals? And if we're outside of that, hey, we agreed on this. Hey, you said that we were doing this. Try to use the ammo that you've built relationally with them of what you've agreed on or the conversations that you've had, and then put in that, hey, since we are all on the same page with this, additional fees are going to apply to this.
Yes.
Remind them of the goals. This is a big one. Prioritize purpose over preference. You've heard me say this a million times. Got it from my friend Dex Alexander. And purpose over preference. Hey, I know that you want it this way, but to serve the purpose of the project, it probably needs to be this other way. And so as much as you have your nightmare opinions and you're expressing those, they are just opinions, and we want to move to the purpose of why we're doing this project. And this is going against that.
It all goes back to the why, right?
All goes back to the why.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Solutions. This is what we can do to avoid happening again. Ooh. We have 12 minutes. I'm watching the clock. We're not going to get cut off today. 12 minutes. Nick, here we go. Hop into the first one.
Let's do it. Number one, first thing, we've named it 1,000 times. Change the contract. Go back into it, fix it, find what that issue was, find a way around it. And don't feel like this is making it be like, oh my God, this person is the hardest person to deal with. If you've gone through that pain, I'll happily put it in my contract the next time, right?
Yep.
Be explicit, be crystal clear on all those things. You're good to go.
Yep. And I started putting things in there that clients don't know, but are going to ask for. So things like that I'll put something in there that's like, hey, if you want this to be a white label project, there additional fees will apply. And knowing that we're going to have that conversation of like, white label, like, is that a special thing? It's like, oh, that is when you ask for me not to put it in my portfolio, that I can't talk about that I'm doing it. And then it comes out in that conversation, oh, that is what we want. And I'm like, cool. Mm-hmm. So the additional fee on that is a huge markup. And that's something that needs to be a conversation at the beginning. And so I've started putting all that stuff in the contract, even if it's not going to be relevant to them, even if they don't think that it's something they need in the initial consultation. I'm putting it in there to say, hey, you may ask about this later, and we may tiptoe onto this, and it's in my contract already, even though we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, love it.
All right, next
Next
up,
up,
make clearer job estimates. How do you do this?
it's your next step after you've done the agreement or everything. Actually, it might even come first because let's say you're giving your new proposal, whatever it is. Someone mentioned, how many times did someone mention like they're adding on something new, or does something new add money to it? Of course it does. So the clearer your estimate is, every step of the way, what you're charging for, it's going to make clear sense that if they are adding something, it's going to be more.
Absolutely.
So, right? Just and itemize this like crazy. You don't want it to be 4 pages for, a logo rebrand, but a good 5 or 6 paragraphs worth of content is better than just saying logo rebrand, $2,000.
Yep.
You see what I mean?
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And yes, Elizabeth, I'm super appreciative. This is like a side note of chat today. You guys are tuning in. You're super engaged. This is awesome. I think a lot of you are probably coming from the boot camp, but you've given a new life to office hours this week. It's super fun. It's so much more conversational.
I can't keep up.
It's great. And Colby has a great question. And I think that this
Yeah.
applies probably more to me, but I think it's an insight at least that I'll share. Do you charge an additional fee if they don't let you stream the process work? My answer to this is yes. So I'll either not take the project on. So there are projects that I've turned down because they have asked me not to stream it and not to show it. Because a lot of my process in my work, so like, right, we talk about freelance, we talk about getting jobs. A lot of my job is sharing with you. It is education. It is opening up my process. And so the actual work is not a ton of my job. Most of it is streaming. And so being able to stream projects to me allows to share one and put my name out there, get more work based on that, and then hopefully build audience with you guys. And so if they're not going to let me stream that, I will pass on jobs because it is something that's a part of what I'm trying to do in my career. So not a suggestion for everyone, but define your goals and what you want to do and who you want to be. And that's what I've decided. And so that's what I have to stick to.
What percentage would you say is you valuing a new job opportunity based on the fact that they'll let you do that or not?
I've turned down, I've turned down some bigger projects that would have been like long-term rebrands or, big paychecks that I'm like, I don't want to do that. It's something that just stacks on top of where I'm trying to go with my career that's going to deter from that. I really want to do a little more of like the personality stuff, the design work that overlaps with that. I don't necessarily want to go into I'm just full-time all the time doing branding work. I love doing the streaming. And so because I've decided that for myself, the stuff that comes in that's like this will dominate your life and you will just be doing branding work, I don't want that because I also want to be streaming.
Well, I think that's fantastic. You've set an expectation up and you're shooting for it. Whereas it's not just a blind thing going like, well, I kind of like streaming. It comes with value. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do have clients that I will reach out to if they need production work or things that I think that I can stream, then I'll reach out to them and lower my hourly rate to subsidize what I will be getting either streaming or from exposure of streaming or having the content to work on while I'm streaming. And so there are clients that I have close relationships with that I'm like, hey, I'm streaming for 2 hours this week. Do you have any projects that I can actually work on? Give me that so I can show them the real process. Yes. Okay, cool. Continuing on. Stand up for yourself. Well, this just ties in. Stand up for yourself, stick to the facts, leave emotion out. So for me, the advice I like to give people, 2 things. Figure out what you want to say and how you want to say it. And that will dictate how you stand up for yourself, how you communicate to your clients, what you're pushing and what you're trying to do. Stand up for yourself. Nick, how do you do this?
Ooh, it comes with learning lessons, right? I think now it happened so early for me. I believe I told a story a long time ago, but when it happened to me even before my first job, it was in between graduating and getting my first job. Someone really burned me on not paying me, using the art, going to town with it. And that feeling, I just never, ever want it to happen again. So little by little, you learn how to stand up for yourself and you'll find those moments where you do have to. And there's a great way to do it. You can always do it in a friendly manner. It's never, with the, like, kind of like the on the negative side, it's you standing up for yourself. Think of how many times you appreciate it and seeing someone else doing it for themselves, right?
Yep.
So just do the same.
Absolutely. And yes, Elevation says, how much is a customer worth over a period of time, lifetime value? Sometimes that lifetime value, and I found this in a couple clients, that looking at what the lifetime value is ends up like not actually working out, right? And so I like to tell people, don't give up what you want for what you want now, right? That you want the jobs now, you want, to like lock in this long-term lifetime value, but what you actually want is to have consistent clients and to make money and to be successful in, the goals that you're setting for yourself. So that doesn't mean that you have to like put all your eggs in a basket with like, oh man, there's going to be so much value in this client. Sometimes the value isn't actually there, kind of pushing toward the future.
And my most valued ones were never the ones I thought were going to be that way at the very beginning.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Right. So you can't predict this, guys. You can try all you can, do all these great tips, but it will still surprise you.
Yep. Yeah. One of my first contracts coming out and going full-time freelance was a friend that gave me a contract, and it was a 3-month contract to help with production work. I am now 2 years into that contract. I did not think that it would continue. I did not think that it would be something that it like became one of my main things to work on. Like it has literally, you'd never know. Like try to treat your clients well, and you can't count on it, but having that is really awesome.
My first client became a 7-year contract, basically.
That's crazy.
And I literally, until they got big enough to have an art department, and I helped them craft and cultivate that. And now they have 3 or 4 people. It's no longer a client, but I'm still like an advisor in a way, which is such a cool, what a great kind of way to kind of end it. You know, you knew it was coming.
Yep. That's awesome. So, Nick, let's do the summary and then we'll answer a couple questions. So chat, get your questions in. We'll have time to answer 1 or 2. Nick, what is the summary of all of these things when you're dealing with nightmare clients? What is the summary?
No, be crystal clear. Do not do anything that a surprise could happen or an unprovoked expectation or anything that just was not planned. Respect yourself, like we said, stand up. And know when to leave. Like, again, I think you can't get to that leaving part until you have, like we were saying, stand up for yourself, or you try to fix that. If you give it your all and try to fix, I can walk away.
Yep.
100%, no problem. Because trust me, there's another one on the horizon.
Yep. Sometimes
my mom always said, one door closes,
yes,
a bigger and better one opens up. And there's been life lessons.
Yeah. That's actually the takeaway at the end of my article that I wrote about that experience with the agency is like, right, everyone tells you like when you get knocked down, like get back up, and then there's no like action after that it's like, okay, I get back up, now what I do. And sometimes it's to push and stand up for yourself and kind of make sure that you're going to make your voice heard. And sometimes you get knocked down, you stand up and you just walk away. Like don't give them the satisfaction of pushing you down again. Just be like, deuces, I'm out. I'm more confident than this. I'm better than this. I don't need this. I'm good. I'm out.
Yeah, for sure.
And Josephina, thanks for joining us a little bit late. You can rewatch this, everyone. This does exist on YouTube for the rest of eternity. And I believe that the link is posted in the Discord so that you can check that out. And somebody else had a question. If you have questions, we have about 2 minutes left for your questions
before we're cut off.
To come in. Somebody had something.
Let's see.
Oh no! No, wait. Somebody said something that reminded me of something. Oh no! It's gonna go away.
I totally agree with you guys on the Fiverr thing. If a client leaves you for that world, they'll come running back. Don't worry.
Oh, 100%. Elizabeth Mock, congratulations! Got a deal secured. A contract. Heck yeah!
Good for you. Group clap from everybody.
Group clap. Yes. So, okay, let's do this while we wait for those questions to come in.
Sure.
Over here, nope. Over here, nope. Over here, you can...
Yes.
Too many buttons. They're all labeled like the wrong thing too. I just assume that I know them. Over here, this is our Discord, bit.ly/fallsemester-al. That's our Discord. You can get plugged in there, get all the information. And Nick, do we want to make the announcement that just happened a little while ago, or do we want to wait? Like the announcement that happened yesterday? Do we want to wait to like make a big announcement?
Let's keep them waiting a little bit.
All right. Yeah. Well, Nick and I have a big announcement coming, and it's going to be very exciting. We're going to need your input on it, and we're super excited. So this is a little tease for the future.
2021.
Yes. So for the weekend, here's my advice to you.
What do we
Don't
got?
think about any of this. Don't watch this video. Go out and don't go out. Have fun, dress up, eat a bunch of candy, and come back
Take
next
some
week.
time off.
And we'll
Yeah.
catch you up. We'll just hang out and we'll vibe. Go have fun this weekend. Y'all deserve it. Lay on the ground and eat like an entire bag of Snickers.
Yes. Or Sour Patch Kids. Whatever
Yeah,
you got.
one of those two. All right. We will talk to you. Everyone wants us to say it. Not going to say it. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
See ya.